What makes The Last Jedi so controversial amongst the Star Wars fan base? And can we geeks figure out how to disagree well when it comes to something maybe we consider a little sacred? Hey guys, I am thrilled for today's episode. We've been waiting for a while. This is one of our double issue episodes. That doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be twice as long. It might be, but it means we do have twice the hosts on today's episode. It's a special episode we're going to be doing. This is going to release on May 4th, I think, or sometime near there. You guys, I'm not good with time. It's not like I do the schedule. I do the schedule, guys. Anyway, so thrilled for this conversation. I am Joshua Noel, joined by several of the other systematic geekologists. We have Pastor Will Rose, Kevin Schaeffer, Christian Ashley. DJ did nothing wrong, but okay, anyway. TJ Ryan Johnson did. Okay, TJ. For those who are not on YouTube, Christian has an absurd subtitle for his name. Ryan Johnson's Genius Film is what we're going to be talking about today, and why J.J. Abrams messed it up. Sorry, guys. That's the one thing about getting the lead is you get to throw your bias out first. It's great. Hey, before we get into today's subject, real quick, if everybody just shout out, just say a name. Don't spend too much time. I'm just going to do this. I'll give an example. I'm geeking out on the new Fallout series. That's it. I'm not even going to tell you how wonderful it is. TJ.
Blue Exorcist. I caught up.
Nice. Christian.
The Marvel anime they did in the late 2000s.
Man, that's hard not to do follow-up questions. Will.
Oh, animation these days. We got Bad Batch, we got Invincible, and X-Men 97. It's a good time to love animation.
All right, Kevin, bring us home. What you geeking out on?
I'm reading a book called Batman's Batman by Michael Eastland, who is the guy who owns the rights to the Batman movie franchise. So it's his second memoir. Highly recommend.
Man, great stuff. Well, guys, you know, we are the Priest to the Geeks, and we need you to smash that like and subscribe button so that you're not smashing Will's heart. It's one or the other. You're smashing his heart or you're smashing that like button. So
Like
please choose the like button.
They blow up Alderaan, and Obi-Wan Kenobi has like almost a heart attack. That's what I feel like when you don't smash that like button.
And of course, if you're not on YouTube, you listen to the podcast, we would appreciate it if you rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts. Smash the 5-star rating and that little bell if you're on Spotify, or if you're on a laptop, go over to Podchaser. That helps the algorithms find us if you leave a review over there. So we do appreciate that. We also appreciate our sponsors, our patrons, our supporters, our Captivate followers, all of them. We want to do a special shout out to one of our patrons today, Annette Noel. You rock. Thank you so much for supporting the show and for caring for me and helping me exist this long. It's been a challenge. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into a fantastic movie review. Now, do I mean it's a fantastic review or a fantastic movie? I mean both. But we'll figure that out later as we go. We're going to start with the most neutral of us, I think, is probably TJ. In most things, he ends up being the most neutral. He just seems to be part of his nature. Probably what makes him such a good host of the Whole Church podcast over there. Speaking of which, I did want to real quick explain to people, this is going to be dropping on the Whole Church feed as well. This is going to kind of be like a lighthearted follow-up to our Can We Disagree Well series, our controversial unity series that we did over there. Because you know what? You guys had a lot of really heavy topics, and we're taking a couple weeks off, more than we originally planned, sorry. And this is just going to be a nice little, hey, here's something controversial, and here's some geeks learning to disagree well, and hopefully it's a little lighter than some of the other stuff. But with that, the most neutral, TJ, Tiberius Juan, Blackwell, could you potentially summarize the plot of The Last Jedi, Star Wars Episode VIII?
So, The Last Jedi, I'm pretty sure, is the longest Star Wars movie by a little bit. It's like 2 hours and 35 minutes. So a lot happens, but I've never told a long summary in my life. So basically, we get Rey trying to convince Luke to come teach her how to be a Jedi and come help, save the galaxy from the First Order. Doesn't work. And we see the Resistance trying to resist. And the First Order doesn't like that. So they take care of it. We get introduced to a couple of side characters who remain divisive. I like Holdo. We get to Kylo Shut up. We get to
I'm sorry. Continue,
whatever.
TJ.
We get to
I'm the
Kylo
problem.
getting
Holdo's great.
rebel, doing his apprentice kills the master thing. Tries to get ready to take over the galaxy with him. That doesn't work. They're not that friendly. Few things happen in between here and there. It ends with Luke deciding not to kill Kylo, which is fine. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You missed some details
Yeah.
here and there.
Yeah. Listen, we're all going to be dying to give more notes, but there's a reason we let the most neutral of us do this. So I'm not going to let anybody add any plot points. That's it. You just get TJ's plot.
Yeah, everyone has plenty to say.
Yeah. So we just have to learn to make peace with how great TJ is, and I'll have to make peace with the fact that you couldn't have done it better. I'm sorry. And that's including myself, because I love this movie. This is actually one of my favorite Star Wars films. So speaking of which, I'm going to throw it over to myself first, because that's always easy.
Joshua, what's your nickname again? Share with me your nickname around Sismeki Gala. Just so people know.
The producer, editor, and one who could silence you for the whole show.
That's true. That's all true.
Yeah.
Two things can be true at one time. What's your other nickname?
I may be known as Josh with the bad opinions, which is why we had a Kevin here, so that no one does that kind of ad hoc argument against me, and instead I can have someone else that they can't just tease because they don't like his positions.
Smart. See, you're also smart.
Yeah.
Joshua. You're very smart.
Yes.
So, actually, I'm not going to go first, but I did want to say, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to give everybody we're going to call it a 2-minute review, but I'm going to give everybody 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
But once it hits 2.5 minutes, you're going to hear a lightsaber noise, something like, and when you hear that, you're done. Doesn't matter where you're at. Your review is now over. So we're all getting 2.5 minutes. And you know what? Let's make the most passionate of us go first. Christian.
Wait, Joshua,
All right.
real fast. Before I don't want this to eat up in my 2 minutes. I just want to say we've been teasing each other about this movie for years, and we're finally talking about it, and we're finally discussing it together. We've rescheduled. It's coming up on May 4th, or whenever this comes out. I just want to say I've never been this nervous for a podcast. I love Star Wars. I'm talking like
listen.
And like big time podcasters. I've been on a lot of things, but I for this one my heart's beating the best because I care. It's only because I care.
Yeah.
When you're nervous, it means that you care. So I'm channeling my energy, and I'm fine. That's why I'm hyped up. People are like, "What's the matter with Will's voice? He's a little higher pitched this time." I'm like, "Well, a little excited. I'm trying to calm down. I'm gonna take a sip of Diet Mountain Dew. That will calm me down. I'm gonna talk to R2."
Oh yeah.
It'll be okay.
Well,
Christian.
this is it's because like the systematic ecologist, we have a community here. We're all like family. So like even though TJ and I have had like 12 different episodes with different scholars that disagree over the LGBTQ community when it comes to church inclusion, sometimes it's a little bit harder to talk about something like this just because he's with your friends. You're like, yeah, I don't want to hurt my friend. If a scholar comes on and says something, I'm like, I don't agree, and they just don't come back on the show. That's not that big a deal. If Will stops talking to me, that hurts.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we got to be friendly. And for those listening and watching, just so you know how deep this goes. One time, I may have pranked Will when I was at his church and took a Last Jedi sticker, his favorite movie, and put it on his mic when he wasn't looking. So now, every time he has to podcast, he sees this wonderful film's a tribute.
It's a sign and fulfillment and the foretaste of the feast to come of unity and harmony and friendship and understanding and learning from failures. Thank you, Yoda, for that good message. And I think Disney also learned from their failures. We'll get into that a little bit later. Thank you, Disney, for listening to your own movie and Yoda.
All right. Anyway, Christian, your thing starts in 5. You get to rating 0 to 10 and go. 3, 2, 1.
This film is a -1 out of 10. It has broken the rating scale with how awful it is. This is a complete and utter betrayal of everything Star Wars stands for. It is a complete betrayal of the characters involved. It is a complete waste of the old characters and the new characters who I really wanted to see do well. I wanted to see them be characterized well. I have no hatred of women. I have no hatred against minorities. So I'm not that Star Wars fan. I hate bad characterization. I hate bad plots. This one has both, and immense droves. We have the loss of Snoke. Who is he? Who cares? We didn't care about him enough. He just kind of dies. We have Holdo. Oh, Poe, I actually kind of like you. The hell you do, woman. Everything you've done in this movie has been counterproductive to that. We had the Holdo maneuver. That's its own thing. Physics in Star Wars, I get it. Doesn't really matter that much. We have bombs suddenly showing up in space, not being propelled like they would be in a Y-wing. It is awful. We have Luke not caring anymore, having given up, a complete and utter disgrace to who he is and what he stands for. I hate this movie, but I do not hate the people who enjoy this movie. I understand their points of view. I highly and vehemently disagree. Yet I have not murdered Joshua, and I quite enjoy Kevin's company. And TJ, of course, is TJ. How could I ever hate him?
You'd be surprised.
You still got a minute left. I'm amazed.
A minute left?
Can I have his minute? Can I have his minute? Can I have his minute?
No, I have my minute. I've said everything I need to say.
No, it is just there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and go. I'm gonna go next. Because I want to leave some of the better ones for later, which means Kevin's last. I'm sorry, Kevin. We have to save the best for last.
Last will be first. First will be.
I'm gonna start mine in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This film is one of the best Star Wars films made. I have to give it a 9.5 out of 10. It's not quite a full 10 out of 10, but God, it's so freaking good. It's just a fun time, beginning to end. There's not a point that's like boring or that it feels like it's dragging on. You have a deconstruction of all of Star Wars. So all these tropes that we thought about heroism is deconstructed and makes us rethink, what is a hero? Do the little people matter? Is a big question that's brought up. Is it all about bloodline? Is it all about these things that we can measure? No. What is the Force? And it really goes back to the basics of Star Wars, redefines some things, and I think even enlarges the margins of the storytelling capacities that Star Wars is able to do after this. Fantastic film, lots of fun. Of course, it has its flaws with plots and stuff, and even rectified some characters I didn't love. You know, I never really loved Luke, so for me, I was like, this version, I can get behind a little bit more. So that helped me. I know that's a minority view, and I understand why, because Luke is beloved by many, and I respect that. I'm just not one of them. They introduced a lot of characters I did like. You got Holdo. I even like Rose a lot. And just the little details and like storytelling, like maneuvers it does, where you see this side plot and it's like, oh, this thing turned out it didn't matter at all. But actually just a commentary on how we view story. We always think everything has to have a coincidentally work out perfectly in the end. And I think it's intentionally done where it doesn't. And I don't love J.J. Abrams films, and this had done a really good job at breaking down all the things J.J. Abrams did that I didn't like and kind of reversing it until, we brought J.J. Abrams back, and then he reversed it back. And yeah, I'm not a big J.J. Abrams fan. But yeah, that's all. I loved this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I really thought that it helped you think deeper about topics of heroism and what is the Force and do bloodlines matter. I thought it was good stuff. I didn't use all my time either, but
Yay!
No, that's probably for the best.
Oh, let's not let Will go crazy. Let's let TJ go. I know he's waiting for TJ's opinion.
TJ.
All right.
TJ,
I don't know.
I'm trying to find out. You know what? You're not going to take 2.5 minutes anyway. What am I saying? Just go ahead and go.
Yeah, well, Will. No, you can cut it to my time. It's fine. I don't need it. So, I like The Last Jedi. It's fine. I don't think it's the best Star Wars movie. I don't think it's the worst Star Wars movie. I'm probably going to give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Is that rating against all Star Wars or just against movies in general?
If it's against all Star Wars, it goes down significantly. Because the best Star Wars media is in the video games.
Fair.
And the Clone Wars. But I like The Last Jedi. Visually, it is stunning. I think it is probably shot not probably, by far shocked the best out of the sequels, easily, bar none, and probably the original trilogy. That's beside the point. This has the best duels in the sequel trilogy, some of the best modern Star Wars duels, period. Really great, really fun to watch. There are some interesting characterization choices, I would say. Some interesting things that happen, some ways the Force can do many things that we find out about in The Last Jedi, which is fine. I'm open to that. It's just some of them are kind of weird. Why can Yoda's spirit destroy the Jedi library? I don't know. It's awesome. He's not the kind to have intervened with that anyway, so it's not like it's a big deal. He wouldn't have used it for something useful. He's Yoda. You know. I do like the set design, just the backgrounds in this movie. The score is amazing. The characters are still characters. Big fan of a couple of them. Snoke was awesome. I would have liked to see what happened to Snoke and what Snoke was about. But we didn't get to do that because they just kind of killed him. Whatever. So I do have my issues, but largely not bad. Not the best, not great, but it's fun to watch. I would watch it again. If it wasn't 2.5 hours long. If it was 2 hours long, I'd definitely watch it again. 2.5, that's kind of stopped me.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and take some of my time that I didn't use.
No.
Man.
My 30 seconds.
No. No.
Just to elaborate. So the J.J. Abrams does this thing where he creates mystery boxes, and he even says he doesn't know what's in the mystery box. He's the reason Lost is what Lost is. Sorry, I'm not a big fan of Lost. He does this thing where he just creates a mystery, and it doesn't matter what it is. And it's why you have so many just annoying things, and I love that the director here just throws them away, at least once literally. So I kind of liked that Snoke was built to be this big mystery, and we said, you know what? Doesn't matter. I think he really trimmed down a lot of the fat of the sequel trilogy of what made it bad.
Someone with that lightsaber.
All right, Will.
I didn't hear. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Okay, so if you heard what Joshua just said, I'm going to go the opposite direction. Let's just say that we're connected on levels. I'm even like one of his pastoral figures, Jedi's, Obi-Wan's, Yoda's in his life. So yeah,
Amen.
respect. I want to start off by saying that, like, yeah, I'm an OG fan, like from the very beginning. This was one of the New Hope was the first movie I saw in the theater as a part of my childhood. The action figures, the hype for Empire Strikes Back, Empire Strikes Back couldn't have been better and fulfilling as a sequel. And then Return of the Jedi, and then there was a big gap of what Star Wars fandom was listening for and looking for, and the comic books and the novels. And so, yeah, then the prequels came along, and then us OG fans treated that with disdain and mixed reviews and a darkness and a wrestling with the dark side and light side of the Force when it came to the prequels. But there's a whole other generation that grew up on the prequels that was their Star Wars. So those two generations of the OG movies and the prequels had to learn to get along with one another, and then sometimes team up on George Lucas. But when George Lucas sold it to Disney, there was a sense of hope in me that I was like, oh man, we're going to get new Disney content. The fan backlash against Lucas, man, he was rightfully so. Get this out of my house and domain. I can't take the fans anymore. I totally respect that decision. So I was hopeful for Disney. And then when they named J.J. Abrams, I was like, dude, I like J.J. Abrams. I loved Lost. I love his reboot of Star Trek because it was more like Star Wars than it was Star Trek. So I was like, yeah, I like this guy. I like him. No, my 2 minutes is not up. I get 4 more minutes. But then, so I was like, yeah, so I was excited. Then A Force Awakens comes along. I couldn't have had more fun in a movie. I loved it so much. I definitely understand that it can be like a cover band playing like old songs from the original New Hope, and people were tired of that. But the mystery and questions that it set up, I couldn't wait to see how they answer in the next movie. And then here comes The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson, a great director, beautifully shot, has great ideas. I love his other movies, but I think what wore me down from the beginning of trying to subvert expectations and even pick on and troll the fans is say all those things you speculated over 2 years, I'm going to just toss it over my shoulder like it doesn't matter. And so who are Rey parents? I don't know. We don't care. Who is Snoke? Let's just go ahead and kill him. Where is Luke and what is he trying to do? Let's just make a grumpy old man who wants to kill his nephew. And so those things hit me in that mood. I'm gonna keep going for 30 more seconds. That I was like, man, why did you do this? What was the direction? And the whole like Disney passed the baton to a new director and not have a cohesive vision, I think suffered for this movie, because Disney was like, we got to make our money back. We got to hurry and rush these things out. Those kinds of things. I wish they had one director, one cohesive vision for a trilogy. We would have been better off. So, right. There was a point, well, I'll share this point later on. But there was a point in this movie. Nope, 10 more seconds. There was a point in this movie where I sat and said, I don't know if I love this movie, when they went to Canto Bight, and I had a mild panic attack. Like, why don't I love this? I kind of like it, but I don't know if I love it. So that hit me wrong. But when we came out of the theater, my daughters who saw the same thing said, I can't wait to see the next movie and see what happens next. I was like, maybe it's not for me, it's for the next generation. So I have mixed reviews. So how they deal with legacy characters, I give them a 2. How they handle lightsaber duels, I give them a 9.5. How they handle new characters, I'll give them an 8. How they handle some of the new characters in later movies, I'll give it a 3. Finn should be a Jedi. There, I said it. So I have mixed reviews. I break this movie down in compartments. And so these compartments is what I rate them on. It could be as low as a 1. It could be high as a 9.5. That's my review of Last Jedi. Sorry, I went over my time. You can deduct my stipend from Sysmechigology.
Will's 6-minute review during our 2-minute segment was fantastic. I disagree with most of it, but it's fine. Yeah. We'll dig more into it later. We saved the best for last. Let's see if Kevin's 2-minute review is closer to 2 minutes.
He can have 30 seconds of mine that I let go.
You used too much. You took his minutes.
All right. So, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, I thought this was one of the best Star Wars movies. Also, I came out of the theater absolutely enthralled. While I liked Force Awakens a lot, it played things safe. And that's why I think Last Jedi was able to do something that typically Disney wouldn't, in that it was very risky. It let a filmmaker who was renowned critically, but also not that commercially successful, really stick to a vision he had for the franchise, for these characters. I think that I'm speaking like Will. I am a lifelong Luke Skywalker fan. I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up on the prequels, but watching, all the original trilogy on VHS. And so I had just a lifelong love for the franchise as a whole. I love Luke, and I actually think that his characterization here makes total sense. I'll elaborate on that later on. But I think that this movie teaches you that your heroes don't have to be infallible. That doesn't mean they have to be, completely evil or anything like that. But it shows the humanity in them, in the character who is so long regarded as this legend. And he comments on that in the movie. But he can make mistakes, and that's okay. And there are other characters I'm going to relate to him later on after I get through this part. But I thought the filmmaking was exquisite. It was gorgeous. It enthralled me the whole time. It's a deconstructionist movie that never gets boring, and it just kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. And I still remember when I saw it with one of my best friends who we used to podcast together. We were both enthralled. We went in the car, recorded a quick 10-minute reaction and then we did a longer review later that weekend. But I was actually, when I came home, talked about how much I loved it. I was actually really shocked by how many people who had the opposite reaction. And now, in the years since, I've been able to rewatch it, and I see those points, and I see the criticisms levied at it, and the discomfort that it does provoke. But I still think it's one of the best things ever to happen to Star Wars. I have loved it more and more on rewatches over the years, and I just rewatched it coming in for this. So I'll have more to say, but that's my quick 2-minute summary.
You have 1 second left. That was phenomenal.
Nailed it.
Great timing. Fantastic.
Perfect.
I'm going to go off script for just a minute, and I know this is dangerous, so let's not eat a billion years of time here. But a couple things that a few of us mentioned I thought might be worth more than our quick takes. One is how this ranks or fits in with the rest of Star Wars. A lot of us, I put it at the top of the list. Christians like this is the absolute worst that Star Wars has ever done. And for those wondering, I think this is number 3 for me if I had to rank it. The original's the first. A New Hope is just fantastic. Then not the Last Jedi, sorry. New Hope, actually this might be 4. I'd probably do The Return of the Jedi, then Rogue One, then this. Because I like Rogue One a lot. Rogue One's good. How are you guys like ranking? How's this fit for you? Like, I know I've made it my unpopular opinion pretty well known around here that I just don't like the prequels that much. I like them a lot better than I used to. I don't think Episode 3 is the worst anymore. And that's one thing J.J. Abrams gave me. I no longer think that Episode 3 is the worst Star Wars film. Thank you, J.J. Abrams. Anyway, let's see. Will, you are the OG Star Wars fan. You mentioned this a little bit. How does this fit in, like, for the rest of Star Wars? Because we mentioned that deconstructionist idea, and for me, that was really exciting. But I could see where, for someone who was all of these years suddenly being challenged and faced with this deconstruction message, it might not have been thrilling.
Yeah, my favorite one of all of them is Empire Strikes Back, because there was so much hype leading up to it, and then it fulfilled all my expectations with the intensity and the oh my goodness moments and the turns and Dagobah and Yoda, and I mean all that stuff was just so good. So that's at the top. And of course, New Hope was first love, and Return of the Jedi, I was like, yeah, there's good moments here, but then I start to see like it's starting to eat its own tail with like fuzzy little bears instead of plush trying to sell toys.
Don't hate on the Ewoks, Luke. Will Luke.
You're trying to sell. I don't know. It was starting to get too big. I guess maybe, and trying to figure out what that vision was for the next. The prequels, I wasn't a big fan either, but they have grown on me over the years because of how they filled in the gaps with Clone Wars and things. I put Last Jedi in the middle. It's not the worst ever. There's definitely moments I really like. I like, as Kevin said, I like the idea of your heroes and legends being humbled and trying to rethink and deconstruct what it means for the universe. I have no problems with that. We'll talk more about how that means. I have no problem with, the Jedi Order. There's lots of problems with the Jedi Order and its religion. There's lots of how are we going to see how is the Force used in the universe. So those points, even the military industrial complex of what he's trying to say is a good point. Just how they said it and what they did and making jokes along the way, almost like I was being picked on as a fan. I was probably taken too personally. Probably didn't mean that way, but anyway, that's how I took it. I would say. That's right. The missed opportunities of the legacy characters. You don't have to subvert legacy characters to lift up other characters. Like I'm a pastor of a church. There's times I want to progress and move things forward and introduce new hymns and new ideas to my congregation. But on Christmas Eve, I don't introduce new hymns. We do the classics. We do that. And so when you have these legacy characters, a missed opportunity of not putting all the big three back on the Millennium Falcon is just the biggest sin that they've done. And I know Carrie Fisher's death played into like what they are planning to do and steamrolled what they're doing. So they had some scrambling to do when it came for that, but I'll put it in the middle. There's some very great moments in this and times I'm really disappointed and the missed opportunities of what they could have done with the original cast and bringing the movie forward. Yeah.
I agree about the original cast thing. I just put that blame at J.J. Abrams also because, he did kill Han.
Yeah, but he wanted that. That's okay. I'm fine with that.
That's probably more Harrison Ford thing than his fault.
Yeah, but Harrison Ford can do no wrong. Don't you know? I don't know if you've been informed. But
Return of the Jedi.
How many Indiana Jones movies are there, Josh?
Now I do acknowledge the fourth one. It's still the worst one, but I acknowledge it now at least. That's improvements.
Next summer when we review... the Indiana Jones.
Well, we're talking about Indiana Jones in May as part of our religions series we're doing this year. Cool. So that'll be a fun one.
This way, I could do a whole list of all the movies. Rogue One's great. I even like Solo because that came after Last Jedi and had no expectations going to it. I even like Solo because it came after Last Jedi. So anyway,
I still can't get into Solo like TJ does.
Hold on, real fast. I think Kevin's right. I think The Last Jedi had to happen to help deconstruct, reconstruct, and help us think what our true fans wanted. And I do think out of that, we got things like Mando and some of the animation and shows they had to regroup and rethink and bring in Filoni and Favreau, who are fans of Lucas and the other thing, to bring the fandom back together. So I think Last Jedi was almost necessary as a means to help us strip away some of the illusions and ways fandom saw itself and go from there. So that's
Christian didn't like you saying that.
yeah.
It's not even that it was necessary. It was just that for me, it enriched me. I think this is the only movie of the Star Wars film thing that I was left thinking more. It's the only one that I saw in theaters that I left excited and I had a good time. Like this was the first time, because I didn't really like the prequels. I grew up with them a little bit, but I watched them in theater and was like, yep, that was okay. You know, one time I watched one with my grandfather and that was a lot of fun because he just wanted to talk like Yoda the rest of the day. And I loved that as a kid, but it wasn't ever like a memorable moment watching a Star Wars movie and leaving the theater until I went with my best friend. We saw this and we were like, this is possibly the best Star Wars movie. And we were both so excited coming out of this. And yeah, like it's because of that deconstruction stuff though. Like for me, I'm that weirdo. And even when it comes to my own faith, if you present something to me that says everything that I know and learned, maybe it's just wrong. Maybe I've just had misconceptions about all this the whole time. That excites me. I love that. But I also could see where someone in my same shoes would be like, wait a minute, I grew up with this movie. I don't want it challenged. You suck.
On the other side, it could be traumatic. So
yeah,
one thing exciting, the other side traumatic.
That might be like more of a personality thing. Like, what kind of person are you? I'm a weirdo. I like my views challenged.
Yeah.
TJ, as the youngest one of the group, how does this film fit in for the Star Wars franchise for you? Is it just another movie? Is it? I mean, how does it fit in with the rest of them?
It's there. It is not top 5. It's not bottom 5.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's like smack dab in the middle of my ranking. I couldn't find my ranking that I wrote down. My Samsung Notes app just got wiped. That's fine. I know number 1 is a secret.
That can't be.
It got Force lightning like that, like Jedi tree. You know, to use the Force lightning.
Yeah.
Like Dark Sith
Okay.
Lord. Okay.
Real quick, let's go to Kevin, and we'll save the worst for last with Christian this time.
Yeah, no, quickly, like my ranking, it's like as far as top 3, it's Empire, New Hope, Last Jedi, and then Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi are really close together. They kind of go back and forth for me because I have some of my favorite moments are in both of those. Obviously, one's much darker than the other, but also as a side note, I met Hayden Christensen recently, and he's the nicest guy.
That's cool.
That was pretty awesome. So yeah, I guess I'm the main prequel kid in here. That's the interesting thing is I would say out of all the Star Wars movies I've got to see in theaters, I think Rise of Skywalker is the only one that like pretty viscerally disappointed me. Others
Yes.
like beyond that, I have really fond memories of prequels. Like I said, I enjoyed Force Awakens a lot. I love Last Jedi, but
Will's
start
taunting me.
talking to me, but it's okay. And then like Rogue One and Solo both grew on me. I just kind of I like not to dismiss those at all because I really enjoy those now, especially. But I just kind of put the spin-off stuff in kind of its own category and treat the main saga as its own. I know others are like
fair.
Rogue One is my favorite movie, and that's totally fair. But that's kind of where my ranking is. But that's the thing to understand about me as a Star Wars fan is there's a lot I like from each different era. Like, I mean, I love the original trilogy, really love the prequels, and then with the sequel trilogy, it's like really enjoy, love, and then don't like it all. So but there's stuff from each era that means a lot to me and that I enjoy. So I can kind of jump around. I'm not stuck to one particular era.
Yeah. For me, Force Awakens is like, if I have like the same ice cream every day and just maybe I'll just get a different one because I'm just tired of the same flavor. Like it's not that it's bad. It's just like I only watch it if I'm tired of A New Hope because I've watched it too much recently. Because really, it's just A New Hope over again with worse characters.
I will say my number 1 is Revenge of the Sith.
That's funny. It's not my. It's in my bottom 3, but it's not my bottom. My bottom is Rise of Skywalker. And then immediately after that, it's probably Revenge of the Sith. And then Solo, which is sad because Revenge of the Sith and Solo are 2 of TJ's favorites. And it makes me feel bad that I just can't seem to enjoy them. I would like to. Christian, we saved the worst for last. Go ahead. Let us know. This is the bottom of the bottom, below the worst. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for making me assemble a list I wasn't prepared for. So I will say off the bat, I know objectively Empire Strikes Back is the better movie, but nothing beats the Return of the Jedi for me. It is what is the thesis statement of Star Wars, and that hope is something to believe in, something that gives people even more hope in the galaxy, something to believe in. And that's where Star Wars should be. That is why I despise The Last Jedi, because there is no hope at the end of this film. Allegedly there is, but not in the film I saw.
So wait a minute, this is the most hope-inspiring movie.
No. I go 6, 5, 4, 2, 3, 1. No, sorry. No, Rogue One is before 3. Then after Phantom Menace, I do Solo. Then I have, of course, Episode 7. Then after that, I have the Ewok Adventure. Then I have the Ewoks Battle for Endor. And then finally, even though it doesn't belong on the list, the holiday special. And
I know
then
you're.
Star Wars movies
Oh
after
my
that.
gosh!
I like the holiday special.
I wish I could. I
above
wanted
Rise
to
of
like it
Skywalker
just
for me.
for the irony of it, but I couldn't. I'm just amazed that somehow 2 made it above 3. I wasn't expecting anyone to give a full ranking, but I'm listening to this going, wait a minute. Objectively,
Objectively, 2 is one of the worst. In the prequels,
like I'm like
but
I
love it
enjoy
more.
2 more than 3,
for
but
what
objectively it is worse.
If this was in my film class or whatever, I would fire whoever said that you're never going to be in my class again. You're out. You're excommunicated.
Yeah,
But
I get that.
I love everything it introduces as far as like the Force and Jedi and the Trade Federation and all that.
All right.
For the war, that's it.
I need to just keep using the. All right, time for the next time. This is the last thing before we return to the outline. But
We're
I
never
need
going
to
to get
get.
back.
Oh, that's bad.
Oh, look at that.
Not doing that. I don't like that either. Here we go. Let's talk about Luke. Yeah. You know what? I'm curious. TJ, you're the most neutral. What are your thoughts on how Luke was handled in this movie?
I don't hate it. It's normal for people to fail. No
Mhm.
one is infallible. Not even Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. So one of the things I really like about this movie, before I let Christian destroy it, and then Will kindly remind us that he doesn't like it. I really enjoy one of the things. All of the Star Wars movies say it. This is the only movie that I felt like shows that everyone is connected to the Force and everyone matters. In the beginning of the movie, you have some nobody sacrifice. You have Leia making a big deal out that the people on the bombers, that we lost lives, that it's not just the main characters that matter. And that's where I like Hodo being introduced. And that's where I like Rose being introduced. That's where I like a lot of the stuff. And I actually appreciate that Luke has messed up. And it's so funny because I know a lot of people want to throw out, oh, Mark Hamill said this thing this one time. Okay, but here's the thing. If you were to erase all of my memories, introduce me to Josh 2013, and then tell me the things that I believe now and say this is the same person, I'd laugh in your face. There's no way I would think that was the same character. And that's what you're asking an actor to do. An actor like Mark Hamill hasn't lived out Luke's life. So he, just like a lot of the fans, and I know Will wants to make his argument from authority, which is a logical fallacy, by the way. But
Shut up.
You're a logical fallacy.
here's the thing. Just like a lot of the fans, I feel like Mark Hamill built up who Luke was, and I did the opposite thing. So this is like where my bias comes in. I, for some reason, ever since Empire Strikes Back and Luke disobeyed Yoda and Yoda said this is going to lead you to the dark side, I have spent my whole time, most of my life until this movie came out, just assuming that Luke went to the dark side one day. So for me, it was kind of like, he's not fully evil. Weird. Just assumed that's where he was going to become because, Yoda said that. Yoda can't be wrong. Which also is an argument from authority, which is a logical fallacy. Yeah. Anyway, that's my bias. Ready to hear everyone else's biases and opinions. Will might die if we don't throw it to him.
Okay. So if you listen to Christian's argument about like what Luke did in the Last Jedi, I mean in Return of the Jedi, and that's how he saw like the epitome of hope and that kind of the crescendo of the whole series. And then you put that against this one, I could see where like Christian's like, nope, bottom of the barrel, -1. For me, like, yes, it makes total sense that if you're disillusioned, you've tried really hard, there's some failure. I have no problem with him wrestling with his legacy, his legend, deconstructing, being a different person. But to go from a whole weight of cutting yourself off completely from the Force and abandoning your friends and family because you made a mistake is just really hard. Like, we'll talk a little bit more in a bonus question about what I would have thought would have happened after Force Awakens. The way you could do that in a way you can still toss the lightsaber over your shoulder and say, yeah, the Force isn't about just laser swords and lifting rocks. It's not. It is for every single person, which is why I wish they had made Finn more connected to the Force and other things. That the broom boy at the end of the Last Jedi grabbing the Force and say like the Force is for anybody. Absolutely. It's not about blood counts and being trained in a religious order that makes you force wielder. It binds all things. So that kind of thing. I just wish his portrayal of cutting himself off from all family, all friends, and letting his friends literally die because he's turned his back on them, it wasn't the way to go. And so when Mark Hamill not just tweeted one time, he wrestled with it. He was a game. He was a team player and said, I'm willing to do this. But along the way, he kept saying, do you really want to do this? Is this really who Luke is? Is this really the vision of what you're doing with this person, that you're subverting all of what happened in the original trilogy by some of his actions? But you can still wrestle with failure. Yoda's message there at the tree is fantastic message. Man, take that to heart. 100%. And even blowing up that tree, I love that at the end of the movie, Rey took those sacred texts and he's put it on the symbol of hope, the Millennium Falcon, and all that survived for this hope is there on the Millennium Falcon, the ship that is the symbol of hope. But also, she still has the Jedi texts, and she still has like a way to move forward. She didn't blow up all those things; she still has them. And Yoda has this ironic kind of like, yeah, she has all what she needs. Oh yeah, wait, maybe she doesn't need the books, but he knows that the books are on.
I love that.
That's a redeeming part of this movie for me. So Luke here has as I rewatched it, there are moments of like Luke or Mark Hamill acted so well in this movie. He was so good in every aspect, and he embraced what they were trying to say. But I think they tried to course correct that in Rise of Skywalker. But I wish some of that what was happening in Rise of Skywalker would have been here in Rey bringing him back to the people. I love the aspect of her saying that your people need you, and R2 showing that hologram of Leia saying, look who you've forgotten who you are. This is who what brought you to be, and him being awakened and saying, oh, you're right. I don't need to isolate myself. I need to be back in community. That message would have been great, but rather instead, they got to make jokes. They got to subvert. They got to every twist and turn of this movie. I was just worn out by the end of how many times they're going to make a joke or subvert expectations. So that's where I am with that. It's complicated.
All right. I'm going to respond to that really quick and then let TJ go, because TJ looks like he has things to say. I just want to my own take on a lot of this. It seems like they wanted Luke to be the Yoda. And what did Yoda do at the end of episode 3? He lost a single fight and then said, I'm going to isolate myself. I'm not going to help anybody. I'm not going to do anything good in the world. I'm going to go isolate myself. So that's what Luke did.
The Force, though.
Yeah.
We didn't. He was still communicating with Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't hear the question. I thought you were just, okay. I thought you said he didn't, and I was like, yeah, just agreeing with you. Okay. Yeah, that's true. But you still have that similarity. I think it was very intentional. And I think it would have been weird if Luke did what he did and didn't live with tremendous guilt and basically have him paralyzed. Like, I feel like that's just what would happen if he did that thing. Which I know him doing what he did is a big problem for Christian, and I'm sure Christian will say something about it soon. But even the thing, so we're talking about is he lights his saber thinking about striking Kylo and never does, because he senses this darkness in Kylo, right? That is just a direct parallel to episode 3. That's just them going, hey, Luke is his father's son. You remember this time where the Emperor was slowly giving dark thoughts to Anakin and someone's life was at stake, and then Anakin suddenly turned evil? Well, here's Luke faced with that same temptation, but he overcomes it. and he still has to live with the guilt of it. I mean, that's a powerful message. And then it deconstructs your heroes, because there isn't this hero worship where somewhere out there is the right person. You know, if I just go to Pastor Will, he can pray for me and everything's going to be fine. That's just not a thing. In fact, I might go all the way to Chapel Hill to have Will pray for me and find out that Will did something terrible and now he's down there and he actually needs me to pray for him. That's just as likely. You know, like, Will's a pastor. I love Will. I don't think he would do those things. But the thing is, like, we can't put these people on the pedestals that we put them on. And I think it's a good message this movie does. And I like the parallels it makes to Luke and Yoda, Luke and Anakin, and these other things to really deconstruct what is the message of Star Wars. Is the hope in this bloodline, or is the hope in every single person?
I don't disagree with that. I just how they shared that story and what they did along the way. I understand. I do understand where you're coming from. Yeah. TJ, go.
We should have learned that Leia was force sensitive in Episode VI.
Yes.
Yep.
I agree with the
Correct.
move. Should have just happened way earlier. Because
correct.
Of course she is. Why wouldn't she be? Obviously.
Be really weird if she wasn't.
It'd be so odd. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say.
Funny. All right, Christian.
Okay.
I like Luke.
I am not opposed to Luke failing at something. What I am opposed to is him failing and giving up, because that is not Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
This is the Luke Skywalker who not only attempted to redeem his father in the final moments on the Death Star 2, but also attempted to redeem Emperor Palpatine, someone he knew he was never going to succeed on, but did it anyways. And yet, oh no, my nephew's having bad thoughts, and I'm going to stand over his bedside instead of talking like him, you know, like an individual, like a person, so that he can misconstrue why I'm there and see me with a hand on my lightsaber, even though I would never actually do it, which they say he's never going to do it. It's Kylo's misinterpretation of that scene. Well, that misinterpretation doesn't happen if Luke isn't a complete and utter idiot, which this film requires him to be in order to get him to where he's at. And I'll go with where I want him to be later on in that bonus question. But Luke of Legends was also a failure in certain regards. There's at least 3 Jedi I know he trained, and there's probably more that I'm just forgetting, that ended up Darksiders or trying to join the Sith in some way, shape, or form. You've got Kueller, you've got Brakis, you've got Dasan. There are so many failures there, yet I don't feel emptiness about him. I feel a lack of hope about Legends Luke, because those are the exceptions to the rule. He taught many capable people to become Jedi. He overcame, even when the Jedi Academy was attacked by the Empire, even when it was attacked by the Yuuzhan Vong, he didn't give up. He kept going and led the Jedi back to where they should be. Was he perfect? No. And are there some things in Legends I really don't like? Absolutely. There are plenty of things in there where I go, yeah, this is why there should have been like only a certain amount of people doing something in this field. But when it comes to this movie, him throwing away that lightsaber makes the rest of the film what it is. I mean, I could look over certain things, but it's pathetic. This is Luke Skywalker who, instead of rising above his situation, realizing, okay, I screwed up. What can I do to overcome that? And what really affects me this way is because that happened in the last film with Han and Leia. They, in certain respects, gave up. They gave up on their marriage, to where Han goes back to being a smuggler because we got to get him back in that position somehow, instead of him doing it as a job and because he enjoys it. You know, he and Leia have to be on their Splitsville, and that's not Rian Johnson's fault, and not everything is Rian Johnson's fault. I think it's a very competent director. I enjoy Knives Out. It's a really good movie. I have not seen Glass Onion yet. I need to do that. But I think really this is a poor example for him. That's not Luke Skywalker. That's not Han and Leia. And once again, it's not his fault that he had to open up the film with, oh, what's Luke been doing? And it's that same thing for Game of Thrones. It's not the fault of those D&D. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, that they had to create an original ending for the story. It was a very terrible ending that they made, but it's not their fault.
I just saw it.
It is not stupid. I think if Rian Johnson had been able to do this from the beginning, maybe it would make more sense to me. Why? Because I probably would have seen why Luke got into this state. But I don't. And even with, the flashback, well, yeah, I know objectively people died in that, but who are these people? Why should I care?
Yeah, and I think some of that, just to real quick, like I think part of I like that Disney. I like Disney. I don't have anything against Disney. I like Disney Star Wars, but I think some of their beginning hubris and pride that like we're going to disregard all the legends, we're going to disregard the prequels, we're going to disregard the Clone Wars and cancel that. We're going to do our own story moving forward. Was a way to them like, wait, there's a whole history of people living with this character for a long, long, long time, and you can't just sweep it under the rug and just do your own take and think people are just going to just lap it up like you're the all things. Like you got to refer to some of the legacy and the canon that's there with this character. And it doesn't mean he has to be perfect or can't fail or isolate himself or make some wrong choices. It's just some of that distrust comes along with you. If you're going to lead up to like discounting some things that people care about that they've sat with for a long time and then try to do your own thing, you just don't have the trust of the fan base. And then when you do things like this, then of course there's going to be backlash because you're not in like a trusting relationship with them. So in the story groups, lashing out with people on Twitter beforehand and after. I mean, there's some behind the scenes things that why this is so divisive. But there's moments as I rewatched, I was like, man, this is a good point. Man, this is beautifully done. Oh, now I see this. I'm separated from it. Now I'm separate from that. So anyway, I think there's some backstory behind the scenes stuff that attributed some of that stuff too. But
all right. TJ, Kevin, did either of y'all have anything to say about Luke really quick before we finish this?
I'll try to keep it quick, but I'll try to keep it quick. I know, but I would say so. Joshua, you brought up too earlier that it does run parallel to both Obi-Wan, especially, goes through the same arc. I think more so than Yoda. He has that, isolation, hopelessness, and that's what that series, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, looked at, getting him from that point of despair to Alec Guinness, the Kenobi. And so there's that. And with Luke, yes, I know we want to believe that he's always going to overcome in the end. And in this movie, he does get to that point, reclaim hope by the end of it, but it's a journey. And I think for him, when you look at his history of farm boy for 19 years, then instantly becomes a war hero and is swept into this massive conflict, then is a soldier for several years, doesn't really, yes, he's trained by Yoda in that intermittent, but not a formal training like even Anakin had or anyone else. And he is dealing with like a darkness within him and a light and is constantly in that struggle. And when he becomes a teacher, I think that's the hardest challenge for him because he is trying desperately to prevent the cycle from happening again. And when he sees that it is very much going to happen with his nephew of all people, that's when he, like you said, he has the moment where he considers, obviously he doesn't do it, but then has to deal with the failure. And I said earlier that I was going to bring up other characters where this kind of treatment is done to. I think about Old Man Logan. I think about Dark Knight Returns, Batman Beyond, where are heroes that you look up to so much and you think are infallible. The pilot of Batman Beyond, when Bruce gets to a point where part of that is he can't do it anymore, but he also gives up. And he says when he has to pull a gun on a criminal and he says never again. And even when Terry McGinnis comes into his life, he's not instantly reawakened and it's still a journey for him to believe that Batman can be a symbol. And also, if I can quickly bring up in scripture, a character that I think about, this is a bit of a, well, not necessarily, but I would think about King David, who is as a kid, is the ultimate hero. Even in secular circles, that story of David and Goliath is brought up as this ultimate underdog, good versus evil. That doesn't change the fact that as an adult, he falls big time, forces Bathsheba to have sex with him, and has her husband murdered. And then he goes into despair. And it just shows you that I think when you are put on it, because Luke was clearly put on a pedestal in his own life, and I think that does things to you. And he does. And this movie is not afraid to examine the PTSD that comes with that and the trauma. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow, and it intentionally does make you uncomfortable as a viewer. But that's actually what I appreciated. That and by the end of the movie, he does reclaim that hope, and he's able to not only reconnect with himself with the Force, but he discovers new ways to use it and uses that as a means to not destroy his enemy, but instead he finds hope in the next generation of Rey and the Resistance And that sacrifice he makes at the end is not to charge, the First Order and destroy them all or kill Kylo. It's to give the Resistance, what's left of it, a fighting chance. And that, I think, is the perfect redemption story for Luke. So that's why I love his arc so much and his portrayal. So sorry, Christian, I know I disagree with everything you said there, but
as everyone here keeps referencing the bonus question, I realize I wrote down the wrong thing. So we're going to do the question that you guys see written. I meant to see the follow-up to this movie, what you would have preferred, because I just want to say what Ryan Johnson wrote for the follow-up to this movie. Fantastic. And it makes Luke's thing make sense, where Luke intentionally did what he did to die. Like, he wanted to die so that he could haunt Kylo. And that actually makes it interesting, because then Luke becomes Obi-Wan, and he's this nagging voice until Kylo is redeemed. And that doesn't just redeem Luke, it redeems Han, it redeems everything up to this point. That writing was so much better than what we got. Anyway, tune in next year for me, Kevin, and Will to talk about the Rise of Skywalker controversy.
Yeah.
We'll just do it again. But for this, the huge challenge, we're going to work together. All 5 of us are going to work together to come up with the 3 best parts of this film and the 3 worst points of this film. And what we're going to do, I got some slides. I'm going to try and put them up. If you're on YouTube, you're going to see me just kind of flipping through sometimes. Just because I just don't know what we're going to say here. So let's let TJ kind of moderate and help us along here. TJ, let's start with the worst so that we can end on a positive note. What do we want? How are we going to get to the 3 worst points collectively?
So, this is, I think, the most divisive part of the movie. What people think is the worst. I think the best is a little bit easier to decide because we have some common agreements there. The worst, I think everyone has a different opinion. So
that's true. Let's all like recommend something and then vote.
Yeah,
I think that could work.
Yeah. So Christian, what do you think the worst part of this movie is?
Well, I misunderstood a question, so I have 3 on my own.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I will throw out the character assassination of Luke Skywalker, the pathetic usage of the film's trilogy's new main cast, and completely waste them.
No, you get to throw out one thing.
And a complete and utter disrespect to the franchise's themes. There is no hope at the end of this film.
No, we do need 3
false.
So
yeah, your first and third one are just false. Second one, I can work on you with.
I will say the slow running out of fuel space chase.
Oh my gosh!
That then sets up a side mission to Canto Bight, to do a side commentary on the wrongs of how they're both bad. The Resistance and the Empire both have a plan of like this war machine, and then you have like a master code breaker who's not Lando, but some new character who has like a stutter, who I'm not quite sure if that's appropriate. What are we doing? Is that supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to be what? I don't know what's going on. I don't think that's funny. And so that whole side, and then bringing a new character for Finn and love interest rather than reuniting him with Rey and letting them continue to develop in their relationship with each other, and whether that's romantic or whether it's just how they use the Force or how they're connected or what was awakening them. So
I feel like we should have said one sentence things because I can't remember all that to vote on it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't vote on that anyway.
I think we're foolish to even try and vote on something to agree on.
We got this. We got this. There's one thing he brought up that I agree on. It's what I was going to say. I do think they misused Finn's character. I feel like that was a huge missed opportunity. That's something that if I had to pick something I didn't like about the film, I love the side quest that Will was talking about, primarily because it shows that a lot of these side quests that's happened throughout Star Wars that were like, oh, this just so happens to work out. I like that one time it didn't. It didn't just so happen to work out. That made me happy because that's another deconstruction of this thing that happens in Star Wars that really doesn't make a lot of sense.
I don't mind 1 or 2 or 3.
I'm going to go with Finn.
But do we need 12 deconstructions?
Yes. That's what makes it so good. All spice, baby. All spice. But I'm gonna throw out the misuse of Finn's character. That would be mine.
I will agree with that.
Kevin, if you had to throw out one for us to vote on.
I would say so. I don't mind some of the jokes and stuff. Like I don't even mind the blue milk thing. I just remember how people got offended by that.
DJ Disney wanted to sell it.
Yeah, that's true. But like, but I would say there are moments where it's a little overused. Like some things like undercut with the joke. It's not constant, but it could have been just tweaked there a little bit. So for that,
fair.
like just fix like tweaks on some of that in the dialogue.
Yeah, I'd agree though. The misuse of Finn's character, easily the worst part of the movie for me. Best part of the movie, so probably the porgs.
I just wanted to leave them up there for fun. We weren't mentioning anything that involved the slides, and I put work into that, so I just put porgs on the screen for a minute.
Well, I was going to put them as one of my.
All right. So can we all settle on the misuse of Finn as one of our 3 worst points?
If I can't have every new generation character, then yes, I will settle for Finn.
I think I can go with something you guys brought up. The lack of reunion of Luke and Leia. I feel like that's a big one. I feel like I could get behind that.
Yeah,
Can we all agree on that one?
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Like the legacy characters, even like the tweet that Mark Hamill did was like missed opportunities of all of them on the Falcon together. Like I know Carrie Fisher, if they're building toward that, I don't know if they were or not, but Carrie Fisher's death kind of hurt them. But you killed off Han, not to put them on a quest together or at least reunite them. They didn't even have to be like, hey, we all did it. Let's all get medals like we did in the first movie. But they could be like, yeah, there's some mistakes we made along the way, but how can we lift up these new characters and commission them and empower them to go forward? So I think, it's how misuse of legacy characters.
So I would say to an extent, but part of this, again, it's not necessarily Rian Johnson's fault because like that's how it was laid out in Force Awakens, but also the original plan, it was kind of having like Han was going to be the central legacy character in Force Awakens, then Luke, then Leia. So again, obviously Carrie Fisher's death did have a heavy impact on the change.
That is not their fault.
So yeah. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to see it as well. But if they were going to do that, that would have had to happen in the first movie. Not there. I don't think there was really an organic way to do it here. Because again, like just as I know, Rian Johnson wrote the script first time before Force Awakens even came out in theaters. So he was just writing it as a natural response to that, like not any kind of like fan reaction or anything. So he had to look at, okay, why is Luke isolated and come up with a story angle there. So for the reunion moment, I don't know that there would have been an organic moment to do it in this one. It was just a lot was already set in motion from Force Awakens.
Yeah, I couldn't get behind misuse of legacy characters, but I could get behind missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get behind.
Can we?
Yeah.
I will compromise there.
Okay.
Quick thought.
So we got 2.
Did we like Leia floating through space like a princess? How she used the Force, or should he have used it in different ways?
If they had established she could use the Force earlier in the trilogy, absolutely. Yes, I obviously know she can, but that's a tell, not show.
It could have been done in Force Awakens, definitely. So like I don't have a problem with the moment itself, but I agree that it is like because in Return of the Jedi, you get sort of like there's a slight hint there that because when she says somehow I always knew that you were my brother and everything. So it's hinted there. Yes, it should have been displayed in Force Awakens so that it's not a complete surprise here. But I don't mind the actual like it's a little weird, but like I still like the moment. It's cool.
I think if it went whole hog. Leia should have had a lightsaber. Leia should have been the acting grandmaster of the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
Yes.
True, accurate. But no, I didn't mind that scene, but that's just because you have to remind me, TJ, is it Force Unleashed 1 or 2? But they show you that the character can live through space because of the Force. So that was established in previous media for me, so I was like, I can take that. It didn't feel as weird. Maybe? I don't remember. It's one of the Force Unleashed games.
What's the third one? We have 2.
All right, so we got 2. TJ, have we said anything in common that we don't like that you noticed during all of our rambling?
No, most of it boils down to mischaracterization.
Did they kill Snoke too soon? Did they kill Snoke too soon?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely, yes.
That was one of the best parts of the film.
Or reason for existing, then you can kill him off in this film.
That was one of the best parts.
I think Snoke's death in particular, like not when it happened, but the moment of it being on screen, that should have lasted longer. Should have been like 30 minutes.
It should have been more
Oh,
dramatic.
an
I can
agonizing
give you that.
It was
It
like
should have been
a,
more
"Oh,
dramatic.
crap moment. Who's I'm your father moment in that movie because nobody saw it coming. But I think it, in
That was
terms
so
of them
cool.
subverting again all our speculation of who Snoke could be, and then kind of backtracking, making him be Palpatine in the Rise of Skywalker, and everybody going, "What are we doing?" Like, I think that choice forced the next choice of like, who is Snoke? What is about it? Anyway, I think some of that, yeah.
Christian, I want to check
All
in
right.
with you. Are you okay mentally and emotionally? Because
Nah.
Precisely why I didn't rewatch this film before this, because I knew my emotions were going to get heightened through this
right.
anyways. So thank you for picking up on.
We're coming up on our own time soon.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can find a third.
Or just
It's
pick
hard
a
for me because
tie.
there's just not a lot that I didn't like in this. You know
Yeah,
what?
I know.
You know what?
Yeah,
I got
that's
one. This is really minor, but it's one I think we can all agree on. They didn't use C-3PO enough.
yeah, that's fair.
Yes,
The droids, yes.
Okay, I could see them more. I could see them more, and I would have liked to see Maz more than a cameo. So
True.
yes.
I was gonna say they
missed
should have used the blue milk more.
What about Captain Phasma?
To be fair, if you've been to Disney, it's delicious.
But
yeah, okay.
I actually like the end of Phasma's story here.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
yeah,
All right. C-3PO,
I just
Voice
don't bring that up, but
see if
I do
you
agree.
would like to see.
Okay,
all right.
so our three worst points. I'm trying to go back. The misuse of Finn, the missed opportunity for a reunion of legacy characters, and then not enough C-3PO.
that's fair.
Okay.
All right.
So for the
get.
best things, I'm just gonna name 3 things and see if everyone agrees. The lightsaber fights and the scenery
Yes.
and the acting itself.
I agree
like
with the
all of those.
lightsaber fight. I don't think I'd put the other two as like the best parts.
Can we say how about cinematography? Can we
Yeah,
agree that
cinematography.
and like
Okay, I can give cinematography, the lightsaber fight. I want to see the themes of the movie because I feel like even when I've talked to Christian and he
Why
doesn't
not?
like the movie, the points the movie made were still good points.
If they had made good scenes around those points, I'd agree.
Yeah, I don't disagree with those
Christian.
points. Hey, can I also say that I like the new use of the force? I don't mind force timing. I think it's kind of a cool
Yeah.
idea
I-
of
oh,
connection.
Yes.
Embodiment is not just a spiritual woo 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 ghost thing. I can phase through things,
Mhm.
but it's like a physical nature of him being present and them being together, and Luke walking in and catching Kylo and Finn about to make out, but then he breaks up that, So I think force timing and new ways to think of the force as a grander thing rather than like just a religious prop that Jedi priests use. I don't mind that at all. I think that's pretty cool. The force open to everybody kind of thing.
Force
I like the
protection.
force open to everything. Everybody. Yeah, that's the theme I liked. All right, Christian.
Okay, I'll agree with the Force. My actual 3 were DJ, who I thought was a character.
I
who
do
should
like
have been in
DJ a lot.
movie.
DJ was good.
The one Finn's just like, we'll stop you or whatever. He's like, maybe. You know what? Best written character in the film. Porgs.
Christian,
They're cute.
you and I disagree on that one. Oof.
Porgs.
I
like
would eat those
porgs.
characters in a heartbeat and also adopt one at the same time.
they're adorable.
3. The film ended. No, I actually have changed my mind on something about this.
Oh no!
I like
Ooh.
Rey being a nobody.
Good.
Ooh,
Okay.
me too.
See, that's my. That's yeah.
Despite the mystery box thing that Abrams did, it would have been nicer if she had been someone. But if you're going to go with this is not a bad idea. I like her being a nobody because every single Jedi outside of like your parental lines is a nobody.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
a
I felt
Palpatine
that too.
though.
I agree.
Yeah,
agree.
but until the next movie, she's a nobody. The next movie ruined it.
That is not
Yeah.
Johnson's fault.
But yeah.
Yep.
I like the Porgs. Can we make it Porgs lightsaber duels and then DJ? Because I do also agree with DJ. DJ's
No.
great.
Not DJ.
No.
Not DJ. No.
What?
And at ports
What?
are fine side 0.5. Like they're cute. They're plush. They can sell that at Galaxy's Edge. I get it.
Do you know
but
why they
we
did
have
the Porgs?
stuff? More substantive points in this movie.
Do you know
Forgot.
why they actually did the Porgs? Like it wasn't just to sell product. There were so many puffins on the island that they filmed on. They just had to animate over them. So they just created porgs.
Puffins, and I didn't believe the hype on puffins. I was like, oh, whatever. And when I got to Iceland and saw the puffins, I fell in love with puffins. So yes, I'm all about puffins.
Perfect.
I'm just thinking,
Perfect.
if you want me to really like this movie, don't just say puffins. Let's say lightsaber duels. The point that the force is for everyone, and what's the third?
Cinematography.
Porgs. Cinematography is a good one. It is visually phenomenal. Yeah, good. I agree. All right, here we go. That's not what I meant to do, guys.
Hey, not a bad scene. I like that.
All right, how do we argue against our own view? That's something we've been doing on the whole church series recently. We're gonna give everybody just a minute. We don't need anything more than just a full minute. Argue against yourself. I'm not gonna make Christian go first. That's just mean. We're gonna make TJ go first because he's so neutral. I think that arguing against himself is still just neutral. TJ, how do you argue against a neutral position on this film?
I have nothing to say. That's my opinion.
All right. You know what? Kevin, I'm gonna do mine. Okay. I will say there were plot holes in the film. There were things that I just, particularly if you think too hard about it, you're like, wait a minute. The timing with that side mission, the timing just didn't work out. I was like, I didn't quite love that. I also do see there was a lot of material they could have pulled from Luke to make a more nuanced character, not just a character who had messed up once. So I think that could have made for a more interesting film. Of course, there were ways that they could have, without just undoing everything, unpacked some of the mystery and then maybe shaved off the rest. I can see where there was so much deconstruction that maybe it was a little head spinning, which could have even taken away from the message because people were so distracted from how much you subverted expectations that they sometimes weren't able to see the real point of the film, I think. So that would be my argument against it. I don't believe that argument, for the record, but that's my argument against my own position. Will, you try.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's so much misdirection that sometimes I felt dizzy at the end and a little.
No, you have to argue for the film now. You have to argue against your position.
I was agreeing with you for once. Dang. I will say argument for the film. I do see what it was trying to do to broaden the legacy of Star Wars and make it a widening aspect in terms of the Force and who has it, and that, like, in terms of the narrow use of the Jedi Order and their use of the Force, it's not just for them. That point I really like. So I love some of the message along the way. How they got to it was hard for me, but I definitely understand kind of a new take on Star Wars and what's going to do. I wish there was. It's hard to go back. I just wish there was one director, one vision, and you carried it all the way through rather than rushing past the baton so you can tell a cohesive story. We're not playing a game of telephone here. We're gonna just tell one complete story. So, but I definitely see the points along the way. And man, Yoda's speech to Luke as old man,
that was fantastic.
Old man Luke, and talking to soon somewhat old man Will. Like, there's a lot of there. I'm not the same Will as I was younger. That message hits right and hits hard, and it's not always a good or easy to hear, but man, it's so true. So, and I think Disney listened to that speech and then did some course correction and understand from the failures and move forward with other properties too.
It's hard to decide who goes next here.
Kevin.
TJ, you decide. Christian or Kevin?
Kevin.
All right, Kevin.
I could argue against, I would say, cut down on some of the, like, kind of really messy plotting and the side quests and stuff. Maybe give more backstory and flashbacks, because they do some of those flashbacks in, with Kylo and Luke very briefly. Maybe more of that would help focus on that story. And so if you cut off some of the side quests and that, kind of like really expansive plotting, get it a little more focused, and that way you remove some of the deconstruction and have it a little more focused.
I like it. I can't even fathom. This is the thing that, like, my mind can't even wrap itself around. Christian trying to do this. Like, I feel like I need to give him a hug.
Thanks, buddy.
Christian, tell me why it's the best Star Wars movie.
That's true. That's technically the opposite of his argument.
My patience only goes so far. But what I can do is, if something is trying to say something, which this film is, it deserves to have the ability to say it. It also deserves the right to be challenged. If it's claiming something that is having authority on the issue, it needs to be challenged. And it's very much the same way. The Bible is one of the things that needs to be most challenged in the entire world, because it is proclaiming itself as the only way to see God truly in this world. Either that is true or it is not. And if you don't believe that, well, challenge it. If you do believe that, you need to challenge it anyways. And a film like this deserves to be challenged. And as someone who is having to read a bunch of theology right now, I agree with what Yoda has to say. Page turners, they were not. I love Augustine. I love Thomas Aquinas as opposing views to two of the, I love them anyways, hosts of the Whole Church podcast. But I need to sit down every now and then and go, what did he just say? And do I agree?
For the record, I like Augustine. I just don't like Thomas Aquinas.
Oh, yeah, I should have specified. That's my bad.
I don't like either of them.
That's a subject for another time.
Man, I do like, but that's just it. Like that is like one of the ways this ties in is like, for a lot of us, even though we might not call it religious because we don't want to like idol worship, stuff like this can be sacred to us when it's part of your identity, something that you're constantly engaging with. Like Star Wars, one of my favorite things in How I Met Your Mother, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It's fantastic. But this guy's getting ready to marry Ted. Or this girl is getting ready to marry Ted. That would have been interesting also, but whatever. And Marshall has her trying to watch Star Wars with him, and she just can't get into it. And he sits her aside without like Ted. He's like, listen, here's the thing. What happens when Ted is sad? When he's sick? When he's healthy? When he's happy? He's gonna watch Star Wars. and it's so funny because like it's a silly moment, but if you're like a geek like us, you know exactly what he's talking about. Like it's true, right? Like I remember, which is funny because mine is actually How I Met Your Mother. The night before I got married, I stayed up the entire night. I didn't go to sleep. I watched all the wedding episodes of How I Met Your Mother.
All right, there's the bonus question.
I don't remember that.
Talking about Last Jedi?
Well, you were asleep.
Oh.
But no, like, and it's like there are these things that we hold on to, not because I think there's something like religious and holy about Star Wars, but because it's something that comforts me. So when these things are challenged or when there's something new that we love, it's extra contentious sometimes, right? Like me and Kevin walk out and we're so happy and we can't wait to share it with our other Star Wars friends, and then they hate it. That's a hard pill to swallow. Or you love Star Wars so much and you go into this thing that challenges everything you love about Star Wars. That's tough. That's tough. Even though, yeah, it's just some silly Muppets and stuff in space. But at the same time, it's a lot more than that to so many of us. So I guess the question is,
and that's why we do systematic geekology. I mean, that's kind of why we're doing this, because yeah, we're talking about our fandoms, but there is a correlation to like the meta narratives and narratives that shape our lives, and the credit and the truth and the authority we give it to us and our own stories. And so that's why, and this isn't a bait and switch in terms of like, oh, now we're going to spring like a Bible verse on you. But like, yeah, these stories we care about, how does that affect us? In the same way with religion and communities and message boards and all those things. So that's why this movie is super important to dissect and talk about, because so much of this is happening. This conversation is happening within religion, our communities, our groups, our young adult groups, all, my own church, has a spectrum of how they feel about things and certain characters in the Bible and what the church is doing or not doing. So yeah, I think it's important. That's why we've set this apart as a double episode, because yeah, this is a divisive movie. Why? Because it does trigger a lot of things, the same stuff that's going on with our faith and identity.
I think Muppets from Space is better than this movie.
Yes.
Maybe.
That is, I disagree. I do disagree. But Christian, I got to throw this to you. When it comes to something like this, that you and I disagree very heavily over this film, right? How do we disagree well over this movie and still talk about the important themes? Because I feel like we're able to do this, but sometimes it's harder for others to walk away from a film and not just get hooked up on you love it and I hate it, but actually still say, okay, let's talk about why, and maybe even get into some of these themes. Like for you, it's a big thing that it didn't leave you with hope, because hope's an important thing to you. And for me, it was a big thing that this deconstructed what it meant to be a hero and that anyone can be a hero. And I think it's important that you and I are able to have these conversations and not just get stuck on how dare you not like this or how could you possibly like this film. So you want to speak some to how you're able to engage with a heretic such as I?
I do that regularly, but just for this episode, sure. Joshua, do you love Star Wars?
Absolutely.
Do you love me?
Absolutely.
Then what else matters? Okay. Yeah. It's great. You watched the same film I did, and you came out with a completely and totally different opinion. I completely and utterly, vehemently disagree with the words that have come out of your mouth. Yet, Jesus Christ died for you. He died for me. How can I not extend that same love to you because of a silly little space opera with CGI and puppets and what have you, talking about this mysterious force? Like, do I truly believe what I say when I say I'm here to love God and love others if I don't extend that love to someone who doesn't agree with me?
Yeah, but I think it's possible, and I think a lot of people leave it at that, right? Of, okay, we disagree, but we love each other. But I feel like it's important that we take it even further than that, because we still talk about the themes of the movie. We don't just say we disagree and then walk away. We talk about it and engage in a healthy way. TJ, as someone who's always neutral, you want to speak on, like, how do we do this form of engagement that's not just, okay, we love each other and walk away, but actually engaging?
Just listening. Set yourself aside. Let someone else talk and voice their opinion. And when they're done voicing their opinion, you go, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Unless it's
all right.
Josh. You should always
even-
argue with Josh. It is morally correct to argue with Josh.
That's true, but that's just because I love it. You're making me happy.
And hearing Christian, like I don't have as much disdain to this movie as Christian, but to hear him say Return of the Jedi is my favorite because of what Luke did in the crescendo of the original trilogy, and then to go to Last Jedi, it is pretty abrupt, different characters.
Yeah,
And
that
so
is true.
I totally understand where he's coming from, and then for me, like, I revisited and rewatched this movie last night, and as I was trying to look at it through the eyes of Joshua, there were still parts
Sorry.
like, oh my gosh, here we go again. But there are moments I'm like, yeah, this was actually really well done. I like that part. I like it when Luke turns to Rey and says, all the words that came in your mouth were wrong. Sometimes I would look at Joshua and go, all the words you just said that came in your mouth are wrong, but I still love you and we're going to stick by you to train you. There's moments that are really, really good. And so revisiting, I don't, it's moved up a little bit. I understand it. I'm not as like triggered by it as I was when it first came.
Mm-hmm. You think the sticker on your mic helped any, or?
It may have. It may have. It's still there. I didn't take it off. It's a reminder of my friend Josh.
It's a reminder that I love you. Kevin, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap this one up?
I'll just say, like, I used to do entertainment journalism, and I got really tired of just like online movie culture because it did become so toxic, and like it was like you were afraid to voice an opinion, and I fell into that, like, almost like gatekeeping and shaming people for liking or disliking something, and I'm not like that anymore. I've learned to mellow out, but like so I think it's just important to realize, like, yes, you can have healthy disagreements, and like, I think Christian's reaction to Last Jedi was my reaction the first time I saw BVS. I was just really like, because it did have this like visceral impact on me. I felt it was a betrayal of the characters that I knew and loved. And
Batman
I can't.
Batman versus Superman. Yeah.
God of Justice. Yes. So and I've come to, like, I've rewatched it since. That's a whole other topic. But anyway, like I just remember like the anger and the visceral, and I'm not saying you are a Christian like that. Like, I'm just saying, like, I had this like like a toxic reaction to it, and I'm like, what good does that do to like have that? I'm like, why not just like, okay, healthily disagree with something? It's great if someone loves something, even if you don't, and vice versa. So I don't know. I think it's just like these conversations like this are great because here we are talking to each other, not just like spouting comments at each other on a post or something like that. When we have nuanced conversations like this, I makes it so much better. And because this has given me like like Christian, hearing you talk about how it was hard for you to watch because you felt it did leave you hopeless. Like that helps me understand, like, why people felt so strongly against this movie. And then but then like I have a different interpretation, and that's okay. And I think those, I mean, yeah, it seems silly to maybe to like non-geeks that we're talking so passionately about, a Star Wars movie, but like we're saying, it actually helps you in other conversations that are serious and that have to, it helps us understand and empathize with each other. So that's why I think they're important to have. But I think it's just actually talking, not just, throwing comments at each other or, shaming. If you just listen to each other.
Not just a comment, not just anonymous comment, but in relationship.
Exactly. Yes.
Bravo.
Yeah. I like all the things that you said there. I particularly think that the empathy thing's important. We start small. We start with like, how do we empathize with someone who doesn't like such a great film? And then we build up to, how do I emphasize with someone who disagrees on me on how we love and care for the neighbor or the other in our own community? You build up. And sometimes it's easy if you start small, or if you just start at a galaxy far, far away. So with that, guys, we will be wrapping this one up. There will be a bonus question. We're going to ask how you would follow up The Force Awakens if it were up to you and not Johnson. But before we do, everybody, if you just wanted to do a recommendation, it doesn't have to be Star Wars themed or anything like that. I'm going to throw it to Christian first, since he is clearly in such a positive and happy mood at the end of this.
This will make me positive and happy to say these things. If you want to see Star Wars deconstructed and reconstructed well, it does not leave you with hopelessness. Play Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 and read Traitor by Matthew Stover.
Is that a graphic novel or a novel?
So what was that?
Is that a graphic novel or a novel?
That is like halfway through the New Jedi Order. So of like 14, 15 books-ish.
Okay, cool.
That leads to my recommendation, because it reminded me of that thing I said earlier, and now I really want to play Force Unleashed 1 and 2. They're fantastic games. If you haven't played them, please play them. They're so good. TJ, what's your recommendation?
You should play Knights of the Old Republic 2.
All right. Kevin.
I would read the Vader comics there's a lot of good ones, but the first run from the Disney Marvel era written by Kieran Gillen. So it follows between New Hope and Empire. That's, I think, still one of the best things Disney's put out since they have
all right. Will, shock us all. Be the only one to not recommend Star Wars and recommend Star Trek instead. I dare you.
Recommend Rebel Moon.
Yeah, go back and watch J.J. Abrams' reboot of Star Trek and try and be blinded by all that great lens flare that hits you in the eye constantly. No, my recommendation is in continuity with Kevin's. Read Jason Aaron's initial Star Wars Marvel run with John Cassidy on art, one of my favorite artists. And it happens right after New Hope, leading into Empire. And the art and the storytelling, if you're going to put a couple lightsabers in Chewbacca's hands, I'm for it.
All right. Well, with that, you have your recommendations. You have your homework assignments, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show if you're on YouTube, or again, if you're on Spotify, rate and review, or if you're on if you're on Apple Podcasts, rate and review. If you're on Spotify, hit that 5-star and the little bell in the corner there. We'd appreciate that. If you're on a laptop, go to Podchaser, give a rate and review there. That really helps the algorithms tell people to check us out. Big thanks to one of our supporters, Annette Noel. We couldn't do the show without you. You rock. Guys, remember that you can see other Star Wars episodes we've done. Down below, there's a link. You could do that. And, of course, we need you to remember one very important thing, and that is that we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.